The gavel cracked like a gunshot in the packed Atlanta courtroom, silencing the murmurs of reporters and curious onlookers. "Mr. Harlan," Judge Elena Vasquez intoned, her voice steady as steel, "your threats end here. Bailiff, escort this man out, and call the authorities. Fraud doesn't just unravel marriages, it lands you behind bars." As handcuffs clicked around her ex-husband's wrists, 52-year-old widow Elena Ramirez felt the weight of her late mother's antique locket lift from her chest for the first time in years. But this victory wasn't just about justice. It was the spark that would rebuild her life from the ashes of betrayal. Elena Ramirez had always been the quiet architect of her own world. Born and raised in the humid embrace of Atlanta, Georgia, she was a retired high school history teacher in her early 50s, with salt and pepper hair tied in a practical bun and eyes that sparkled like the Chattahoochee River under summer sun. At 5 feet 6 inches with a sturdy frame honed from years of tending her mother's sprawling Victorian home in Midtown, Elena embodied resilience. A woman who'd buried her dreams of adventure to care for her ailing parents, only to find solace in dusty textbooks and the faint scent of magnolias from her backyard garden. Widowed young after a car accident claimed her first husband, she'd sworn off love, pouring her energy into lesson plans and volunteer work at the local women's shelter. But when her mother passed at 78, leaving behind the family home, a collection of rare Civil War artifacts, and a staggering $3.2 million in diversified investments, Elena's life tilted on its axis. For the first time, she glimpsed freedom, not just financial but the kind that whispered of second chances. Elena's days before Derek had been a rhythm of predictability, comforting in its sameness. Mornings began at 6 a.m. with black coffee brewed in her mother's chipped porcelain pot, the steam curling like ghosts from the past. She'd sit at the scarred oak kitchen table, poring over lesson plans for her AP US history class at Midtown High. The house, a creaky 3-story Victorian built in 1892, groaned under the weight of history. Faded wallpaper peeling like old skin, floorboards whispering secrets from the days when Atlanta burned in Sherman's March. Her mother's artifacts filled every corner. A tarnished Confederate sword propped in the parlor, yellowed letters from a great-granduncle who fought at Gettysburg, and a locked glass case of daguerreotypes capturing stern-faced ancestors in crinoline and frock coats. Teaching had been Elena's anchor. She loved the way history came alive in her students' eyes. The gasp when she described the fiery skies over Atlanta in 1864, or the quiet awe as they handled replicas of the Emancipation Proclamation. History isn't dead, she'd tell them, her voice gaining strength she rarely felt in her personal life. It's the shadow we cast forward. But outside the classroom, shadows loomed large. Her first husband, Tomas, a gentle mechanic with calloused hands and a laugh like summer thunder, had been gone 15 years. A drunk driver on I-85, a split-second swerve, and poof, gone. Elena had buried her grief in the soil of her garden, planting heirloom tomatoes and roses that bloomed defiant against Georgia's relentless heat. Romance? A relic like the artifacts in her attic. Her mother's death in the spring of 2022 shattered that fragile equilibrium. Isabella Ramirez, a first-generation Cuban-American who'd fled Castro's revolution as a girl, had clung to life with the ferocity of a magnolia in a hurricane. Cancer took her slowly, but not before she'd gathered Elena and her sister Maria in the sun-dappled conservatory for the talk. "Mija," Isabella had rasped, her once vibrant curls now thin and silver, "this house, these treasures, they're not just things. They're us. Guard them like your heart." The will was read in a stuffy lawyer's office on Peachtree Street. The Victorian to Elena, the artifacts to the Atlanta History Center, with Elena as curator, and the investments, built painstakingly from Isabella's nursing career and savvy stock picks in tech startups, to Elena outright. $3.2 million. Enough to retire at 50, travel to Havana's sun-baked streets, maybe even write that book on Southern women in the Civil War she'd dreamed of since grad school. Retirement brought a hollow freedom. Elena wandered the empty house like a specter, the silence amplified by the tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. Maria, 3 years younger and twice as fierce, noticed first. A CPA with a no-nonsense bob and a closet full of power suits, Maria lived in a sleek condo in Buckhead, married to a software engineer who adored her. "You're rattling around in that museum like a ghost, Elena," she'd said over takeout Cuban sandwiches from El Trompo. "Get out. Join a book club. Hell, download Tinder." Elena had laughed it off, but the seed took root. That charity gala at the Atlanta History Center, under chandeliers that dripped like Spanish moss, was her tentative step into the light. Derek Harlan glided into her orbit like a well-rehearsed scene from one of her history dramas. He was 42, with the easy charm of a Southern salesman, tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-kissed blonde hair and a smile that could disarm a room. A self-proclaimed real estate developer from Savannah, Derek regaled her with tales of flipping antebellum mansions and his passion for preserving the soul of the South. Elena, he'd said over glasses of sweet tea vodka, his drawl wrapping around her name like kudzu, "You're like a hidden gem in this city, strong, timeless, and way too beautiful to be tucked away." Flattery wrapped in nostalgia, it was catnip to a woman who'd spent decades feeling invisible. Their courtship was a whirlwind of Atlanta's finest. Sunset walks along the Beltline, where food trucks hawked gourmet peaches and the skyline pierced the peach-hued dusk. Jazz nights at the Fox Theater, with its Arabian motifs glowing under stage lights as Derek's hand brushed hers, and candlelit dinners at Canoe, where the Chattahoochee murmured below, and he footed the bill with a wink and a promise of forever. Elena, guarded but thawing, confided in Maria over late-night calls. "He's different, Maria. He listens when I talk about the war, asks questions about the artifacts. And God, that laugh, it's like Tomas but lighter." Maria's warnings came laced with love. "Sis, he's got that shark grin. Men like him smell money from a mile away. If you go for it, prenup. Non-negotiable." The prenup conversation happened on a balmy August afternoon in Piedmont Park, sprawled on a picnic blanket amid dogwoods heavy with pink blossoms. Elena's hands trembled as she slid the folder across the checkered cloth. "Derek, I need this. Not because I don't trust you, but because this inheritance, it's my mother's blood sweat. I can't risk it." His blue eyes softened, and he took her hand, thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Darlin', I didn't fall for your portfolio. I fell for your fire. Sign whatever makes you sleep easy. I'm in this for the long haul, Elena. You me this crazy city against the world." He scrawled his name on the thick stack of papers from Maria's firm without a glance, joking it was just Southern hospitality on steroids. The agreement was ironclad, premarital assets stayed separate, inheritances untouchable, no alimony. Witnessed by two notaries at a Kinko's on Ponce de Leon, notarized with flourishes and tucked away like a loaded gun in Elena's fireproof safe behind the Civil War sword. They married in a small ceremony at the Atlanta History Center, under a canopy of dogwoods that showered petals like confetti from heaven. 50 guests, Elena's colleagues from Midtown High, Maria and her husband, a smattering of Derek's Savannah kin, toasted with mint juleps and stories of Southern resilience. Elena wore ivory lace that hugged her curves, her mother's locket nestled against her collarbone, engraved with fuerza, strength. Derek, dashing in a seersucker suit, vowed to cherish your history as I cherish you, his voice thick with emotion that now, in hindsight, tasted of rehearsal. The reception spilled into the gardens, alive with fireflies and the twang of a bluegrass quartet. As they danced to Georgia on My Mind, Elena whispered, "This is my second act, Derek. Don't let me down." He pulled her closer. "Never, love. We're writing the sequel together." For 2 blissful years, life bloomed like azaleas in spring. Derek quit his hectic Savannah commute to support her dreams, rebranding the Victorian as Ramirez Retreat, a boutique B&B showcasing Isabella's artifacts. He charmed contractors with backslaps and cold beers, sourced vintage linens from estate sales in Roswell, and hosted wine tastings where guests oohed over the sword and cooed at Elena's tales of Atlanta's phoenix rise from Civil War ashes. Revenue trickled in, $80,000 the first year, enough to cover renovations without dipping into the inheritance. Nights were lazy symphonies. Derek grilling peach-glazed ribs on the back porch, Elena reading aloud from Shelby Foote's narratives, their laughter mingling with the cicadas' chorus. They talked of Tuscany, vineyards terraced like green waves, or adopting a rescue dog named Sherman, irony not lost on Elena. For the first time since Tomas, she felt seen, desired, whole. But cracks appeared like hairline fractures in porcelain, subtle at first, then spiderwebbing. Derek's late nights networking at Manuel's Tavern stretched to dawn, his phone buzzing with texts from investors whose names Elena couldn't place. The sudden influx of business associates, slick men in ill-fitting suits, nursing whiskeys in the parlor while eyeing the artifact case, set her teeth on edge. And the way his eyes lingered on her checkbook during tax season, casual comments like, "Babe, that Vanguard fund's killing it. Maybe we consolidate?" Slipping out over breakfast. Elena brushed it off as growing pains of their merged lives, but Maria, visiting for Mother's Day, wasn't so forgiving. "He's got dollar signs in his eyes, Elena. Remember the prenup. Keep the accounts separate. No commingling, or it all goes poof in court. The bomb detonated on a rainy Tuesday in April 2025, the kind of downpour that turned Peachtree into a river and the Victorian's tin roof into a percussion section. Elena came home early from substituting at Midtown High, her old kids, now juniors, begging for one more ghost story about the Battle of Atlanta, to find Derek on the phone in the study, his voice a venomous hiss slicing through the storm. Yeah, the old lady's loaded. House, stocks, the works. 2 years married? In Georgia, that's plenty for equitable division. I'll walk with at least half, easy. Prenup? Nah, she was too trusting, didn't even fight it. Her heart plummeted like the oak outside, struck by lightning years ago, as she eased the door open. The laptop on the desk glowed accusingly. Emails to a shady Savannah lawyer named Harlan Tate, no relation, but the irony stung. Appraisals of the Victorian at $1.8 million, itemized lists of her Vanguard holdings, even a draft divorce petition claiming marital contributions to her inheritance, Derek's sweat equity in the BNB as leverage. Nausea roiled as Elena scrolled, the rain pattering like accusations. One email chain gutted her. Derek to Tate, she's a mark, widow, loaded, lonely. Played the history buff card perfect. 2 years in, file and split the pot. Half's $1.60 mil, plus the house equity. Half's $1.60 mil, plus the house equity. Attachments. Falsified receipts for joint renovations, photos of them at the altar doctored to look happier. Elena's hands shook as she forwarded it all to Maria, then slipped upstairs to the master bath, locking the door against the thunder. In the mirror, her reflection fractured, eyes red-rimmed, bun unraveling like her life. Fuerza, she whispered to the locket, clutching it until the metal bit her palm. This wasn't love, it was a siege, her mother's legacy the prize. That night, while Derek slept off bourbon at a client dinner, she'd texted to confirm. He was at a strip club in East Atlanta Village, per Maria's PI contact. Elena called her sister. Dig up the prenup. And check his background. Something's rotten in Savannah. Maria's voice crackled with fury over the line. On it, sis. I've got a buddy at the GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Sleep if you can, tomorrow we fight. By morning, as the storm cleared to a muggy haze, Maria's report landed like a cannonball. Derek Harlan, born Darren Hale in a trailer park outside Macon, had a rap sheet longer than the Appian Way. Petty fraud from his 20s, fake car warranties, bounced real estate deals in the 90s, suckering retirees in Myrtle Beach, and 2 prior divorces where he'd squeezed alimony from trusting women in Charleston and Birmingham. Classic grifter, Maria spat over video call, her face pixelated but fierce. Targets widows, plays the night, then knights the castle. But that prenup? Gold. Georgia upholds M if voluntary and disclosed. Yours is textbook. Elena filed first that afternoon in Fulton County Superior Court, citing irreconcilable differences and attaching the prenup as Exhibit A. The petition demanded enforcement. All assets separate, no spousal support, Derek out by week's end. Word spread like kudzu through Atlanta's gossip vines. Colleagues at the shelter whispering, a former student blogging BNB betrayal. Midtown teachers tango with a tycoon? Derek came home to the eviction notice taped to the door, his face twisting from shock to snarl. What the hell, Elena? This some midlife crisis joke? She stood in the foyer, arms crossed, Maria's paralegal on speaker. No joke, Derek. Pack your lies and go. The prenup stands, you signed it. He lunged, grabbing her wrist, his breath hot with rage. You think you can just erase me? That money's half mine. I made you happy. Elena wrenched free, heart hammering, and dialed 911. As blue lights flashed in the driveway, Derek slunk to his truck, muttering threats. You'll regret this, darlin'. Accidents happen to old houses. The 2 months to trial were a gauntlet. Elena barricaded in the Victorian, windows latched, a Glock her father had gifted Tomas now under her pillow, registered, safety on, history teacher, not vigilante. Maria moved in temporarily, turning the parlor into war room central. Stacks of financials, depositions from Derek's exes. One, a Charleston librarian, tearfully recounting her $200,000 loss, and PI photos of Derek cozying up to a Buckhead socialite at the Capitol Grill. Sleepless nights blurred into days of Elena's internal tribunal. Was I blind? Foolish? Or just human, craving touch after 15 years alone? Flashbacks haunted her. Their first kiss under beltline lanterns, Derek's fingers tracing her scars from Tomas's accident, promising I'll never leave you in the dark. Lies, all polished lies. But amid the pain, resolve hardened like Atlanta's red clay after rain. She volunteered double shifts at the shelter, counseling women mid-divorce. Document everything. Trust your gut. Strength isn't absence of fear, it's dancing with it. The hearing dawned muggy, July's heat pressing against the courthouse's marble facade like a bad omen. Fulton County Superior Court buzzed with Atlanta's legal eagles and a smattering of society bloggers, drawn by whispers of $1 million marital meltdown in the AJC's society pages. Elena arrived in a navy-sheath dress, locket gleaming, Maria at her side in pinstripes sharp as a bayonet. Derek strutted in opposite, slick in a tailored Brooks Brothers suit that screamed borrowed, his attorney Preston Lyle, a weaselly type with a comb-over and a rep for ambulance chasing, a step behind. The oak-paneled courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, benches creaking under reporters from Channel 2, and a true crime podcaster live tweeting #AtlantaAlimony. Preston opened with a flourish, pacing like a televangelist. Your Honor, my client contributed sweat equity to this marriage. Renovations that turned a dusty relic into a thriving B&B, emotional support for a grieving widow. Georgia law demands equitable division, not this ambush. He gestured dramatically at Elena, who sat ramrod straight, clutching her mother's locket like a talisman. Whispers rippled, sweat equity. More like sweet talk equity. Maria leaned in, easy, they're baiting you. When her turn came, Maria rose, voice a scalpel. Objection to characterization, Your Honor. The prenup, Exhibit B, waives all claims to marital enhancement. Signed voluntarily, with full disclosure. She slid the blue-bound volume across the bench, pages crisp as new bills. Judge Elena Vasquez, a no-nonsense Latina in her late 50s with a reputation for skewering gold diggers, rumor had it she'd once sentenced a bigamist to community service at a women's prison, pored over the document. Her reading glasses perched on a hawkish nose, she murmured, comprehensive, her finger tracing clauses on separate property and inheritance protections. The room held its breath as minutes stretched, 5:10, the only sound the hum of the AC and Preston's foot tapping. Derek's smirk evaporated, replaced by a tick in his jaw, eyes darting to the exit like a cornered fox. Finally, Judge Vasquez looked up, her gaze pinning Derek. Mr. Harlan, did you read this before signing? Preston jumped in. Your Honor, this was signed under duress? Misrepresentation? My client trusted his wife implicitly. Elena rose then, voice steady as a professor's lecture on the Constitution. No duress, counselor. He signed willingly after I disclosed every asset, the house deed, Vanguard statements, even projected inheritance growth. I offered him time to consult his own lawyer. He declined, laughing it off as paperwork. Gasps rippled through the gallery as the judge quoted the prenup verbatim. Article 4, Section 2. All inheritances shall remain the sole property of the recipient, immune from division upon dissolution. Initialed here and here. Derek bolted up, face flushing crimson like a Confederate flag at sunset. This is bullshit. Elena, you played me. That money's ours. We built this life together. The B&B, the guests, I poured my soul into it. Chaos erupted as he lunged toward the bench, veins bulging in his neck, fist slamming the bar. You frigid bitch. 2 years of faking it with your dusty swords and sad stories. For what? To trap me? The bailiff, a burly ex-marine named Harlan, irony's cruel joke, pinned him in seconds, Derek thrashing like a marlin on a line. Get off me. She's lying. Check her emails, she'll have proof I loved her. But Elena wasn't done. Composed amid the storm, she addressed the bench. Your Honor, if I may. Vasquez nodded, gavel poised. Elena handed over a USB drive to the clerk. While investigating, we uncovered Mr. Harlan's prior convictions, Exhibit C. Petty fraud in Beaufort County, 2015. Investment scam in Birmingham, 2018. And these? Maria synced her tablet to the courtroom projector, emails blooming large. Derek soliciting loans from B&B guests under false pretenses. Invest in my Savannah Flips folks. Using the retreat as a front for a Ponzi scheme, netting $50,000 before it cratered. Screenshots of his texts to Elena post-filing. Burn the house if I don't get my share. Accidents happen. The gallery erupted, reporters scribbling furiously. The podcaster gasping into her mic. Judge Vasquez's face darkened like a thunderhead. Mr. Harlan, your threats via text last week. You'll regret this or the house burns, crossed into criminal territory. I'm issuing a temporary restraining order and forwarding this docket to the Fulton DA for fraud and harassment charges. Bailiff, remove him. As deputies cuffed him, Derek's eyes lock.